So let's get cracking with this. And so yesterday, I believe we were, I was trying to explain how the site operator would work really nice on the URL. If we have to extract a part of the you can see my desktop right now.
Yes.
All right. So in this query, as you could see that I wrote cnn.com/business. This is what we were doing. And then we discovered that with the site operator, we can use a partial URL, because what site operator wants is something that is in the shape and form of link or a URL that contains and must contain the part which describes the actual domain name.
Right.
So this was cnn.com, obviously a domain name it recognized, and then the backslash, and then so it continued partial URL.
Yep.
And we were able to get to a topic or somewhere in the CNN site that talked about Warren Buffett, and all these words and everything was there. So the idea
Right.
here was to, make sure that you know what you can, be creative with, and you can still use part of it.
Yes.
See, especially the best use of site operator is when you are trying to query some specific domain. When you're doing search for the social media, you want to stick to a type of domain that relates to that, or it has a direct connection with the site itself, like LinkedIn, for instance, Facebook, Twitter, etc. So whatever you need to find in there, or in those pages that are linked to the main domain, you'd be able to query that. So if I have to look for something in LinkedIn or a person in LinkedIn, I'm going to write site on linkedin.com and then Paul Daniels, for instance. I should be able to find his account.
Right.
Another advantage of using a site operator is if you want to go directly to the groups, for example, somewhere in the social media. This is where you query a lot, and apparently, unless you mention the domain itself and then ensure that the path contains the word groups, and the word groups, for instance, is actually mentioned in the sequence or in the format in which it really appears on the site itself. So you definitely want to stick to it, and you want to make sure that the path contains the word group. So if the path somehow had something, and you just have to follow my cursor because I'm on
I can see
example number 6. So here, if I had written something, I just want to show you some of the ways in which site operator would be really useful, just so that you can actually see the significance of it, and how you can actually apply it in a more useful way. So I've got 2 queries which I've actually selected now. It's query 10 and 11. See, when you go to a Facebook to find something that is regionally focused or has a query set in certain part of the world, like in India, for instance, right here. And this is coming from facebook.com. So basically it's a Facebook site. But if you are to default, or you are querying or using internet from India, the Facebook that you will be looking for, or the address, would include something that says hi-in as a subdomain, so that the Facebook is now bringing everything from Indian region or from India. So what usually happens is that it defaults in different social media sites has a default link which is constructed differently. Like if it was a LinkedIn, for example, more than likely you will find something that says site linkedin.com.co.uk, something like that. This would be the domain, and then it would say groups. See? So what happens in situations like this is that you have to get to the site itself first, like
Okay.
Facebook site, and see if you
Mm.
can make it appear as if it is shown, or however the others are seeing it on the other side of the world,
Right.
so that you can look at the link itself and see how it is constructed, so you can then use it again in your search query. But here we are dealing with the Facebook, and the way Facebook is set is that it has something like hi-in.facebook.com. So there's a pattern here. It's different. What hi means, usually the convention is that if you have to mention something specific to a language or a geographical area, you mention a language. So hi is an abbreviation for Hindi. Hindi, that's their language.
Okay, I was
And
wondering
then
about
after the dash, it says IN, which is specific to that region, India. So it is mentioning a language and the country. Okay? And LinkedIn is doing it differently. I don't know how it is showing in the LinkedIn groups in India, but let's find out. So in LinkedIn, it is showing in.linkedin.com. So this is how it is set.
Yes.
And if I have to look for groups, let me look at the URL. Groups and jobs. I can't go there because unless I use a VPN, but I'm assuming that if I use something, I'll just follow this. If I use something like site and I wrote in.linkedin.com, which is what I picked from here, in.linkedin.com, and I say groups, and then I mention a company name. Let me try this. It's not showing up. Maybe it should be in singular. Still not showing up. LinkedIn.com.
Oh, maybe you needed groups. You had group, but not the S.
Let's check. Going to see how the Facebook. Okay, so in LinkedIn, I don't know. I have to go to LinkedIn. Like, let's suppose I go to my website, say linkedin.com. I have to log in. That's the only thing that you have to. So now this is my LinkedIn account, and I want to see how the group setting is done to get an idea of if I have to query further, how I can apply the URL. So I have to pick that specific URL. So how do I get to the groups? So this is the groups. Okay, so I click on the group. So this is what I'm looking for, linkedin.com/groups. Right? So if I pick this exactly and I use it here, my query, it's not going to allow. I'm going to have to get rid of this. I'm going to write site linkedin.com/groups. And see, a lot of times you see they want to hide the name of the group because they don't want, maybe I didn't want to make it public. So what happens is that they have switched the name here with the numbers, or they've hidden the identity of the group.
Right.
But a lot of groups are public, so you can query public groups.
Right.
So if there is something that we were querying earlier, but the word here is groups. So let's, why is the India thing not working here? I'm not sure, but let me try one more time. Site, LinkedIn group, sign in. Asking me to sign in. So I guess this is just making it too secure. But you see, it is going to default to the link or anything linked to the link with the word groups, or groups coming after linkedin.com. So it is literally linkedin.com/groups. If we look at the examples, you may want to test it out because you need to be signed in. I'm using two browsers.
Mhm.
One is where I'm doing, so
Right.
need to log in. So when I log in, it's defaulting to my own
Account.
count.
Mhm.
But these are the examples that you may want to work with just to
Mhm.
test them out to see. So
Right.
I would encourage you to go and look up page 170 to test them out.
Mhm.
A
Mhm.
specific website that you want to get to, like company website. Another good way for looking for something very specific, doing searches with sites that I use more often is, for example, I need to do site AOFIRS.org,
Mhm.
and want something from here that gives me the contact, or the word contact is there,
Mhm. Mhm.
or the word phone, or the word tel, any variant of telephone. This is what I'm trying to find.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
would just use it like this, just so that
Mhm.
it is focused on finding those pages that has these wordings in it.
Mhm.
I can even look for, well, I'm not going to add any more. Let's see. So it is displaying items by tag phone AOFIRS.
Mhm.
It should have any of these: phone, telephone. Um, all of these are going to be found in here.
Mhm.
You see, so people use this to do HR search, to find resumes and contact information, addresses. So
Right.
this is the simplest way of writing it. This
Mhm.
site is going to restrict it to these pages. Um, okay, so let's start with the snippets. We are done with the site operators. I'd like to start with something that we talked about or defined under the heading snippets.
Mhm.
So these examples 10 and 11, I'm leaving it here, and this is something that you want to test out later.
Mhm.
Going to now give it a topic. Let's just call it snippets. And we will start with something we call in title. Okay?
Mhm.
There are
Mhm.
two types of operators that actually do the querying within a certain area of a content page,
Mhm. Mhm.
and their utility is described with identifying them, first of all, with the information that exists on the content page, which relates to
Mhm.
the title or the title part of
Mhm.
information or text.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Mhm.
let's look at the slides. Going back to the slides again, I'm going to show you what is the part that is queried when you're using in title and all in
Mhm.
title.
Mhm. Mhm.
Once you know where we use it, then I'll tell you the difference between all in title and in title. Why do we add the
Okay.
word all to it?
I can maybe guess.
You make an intelligent guess.
Maybe. I don't know how intelligent, but it would be a guess.
I'm just kidding. I'm just,
Yeah. No. No.
thing is, the good thing is that the word all exists in all, wherever it exists. Let's say in advanced operators, it has the same meaning. It gives it the same sense in which it is used.
Mhm.
So once we know why, what's the difference between all in title and in title, how it applies to in text and all in text, all of those,
Right. Right. Right.
they just appear to be the same. Okay. Here is, that search engine only reads the information that exists within the HTML tags. Do you have any idea about HTML or, the web page or anything that you've constructed previously?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, I have some sense. I mean, I've never actually written an
Right.
HTML page or anything like that, but Yeah.
So just as an example, I'll take you to a page, AOFIRS.org, it's our website.
Mm-hmm.
So to give you an idea how the search engine reads it, if I don't need this, never mind. So let's suppose this is my home page, or I'll even take you to another page that talks about certification. So let's say I navigate to a page. Now this page, assuming that it is indexed in search engine, and what we are looking at right now is the construction of a web page that is visible to us as a user. So it has, and the reason why it's appearing in nice colors and with pictures and a good layout with specific fonts defined is because it is projected, or it is interpreted by the well, it's interpreted by the machine to make it easy. I'm just going to use a layman's term here to project or to make it appear nice and well laid out. And if we want to see how the search is going to read this, it is going to be different. It's not how the search engine is looking at the page. It's not seeing this as a main heading. It doesn't know any of this. What it is doing is it's reading the backend or the source code. So if I go right click and I say view page source, this is what HTML is. That's under the hood. This is the engine.
Yes. I've accidentally gone there many times. Yes.
Accidentally you clicked on view source
and
checked it out. So in the HTML format, which is more descriptive and has more details, some of the content that you're looking at right now well, one thing is that it's not defined in a manner that the search engine wants to know. Second thing is there's a lot of information which is not even visible to us as a user. It is there because of many reasons, but assuming one of the reasons is that you want to mention it for the optimization or for the search engine to not ignore, and the other reason could be that it has got a value in terms of its usefulness for the date and time stamp, for example. So date and time stamp sometimes is not mentioned for users, but it is embedded in those codings. So that information remains hidden, and there could be more. So let's say if we look at the source code, you can see that we have these are the lines right here. The way code is written is that they are set in different lines, and the search is also supposed to read it in the same sequence. The portion that appears first, or part of these lines that are descriptive of what is shown in the header part, which is also something that you must have learned, the top portion, like the one that you're seeing right here on top, specifically with the logo and the main navigation. This portion is headed, and the header portion is supposed to, generally it remains constant, and whatever is in the middle part we call body of text just keeps moving. It's more dynamic. So the coding that you have here at the top, or the one that is right behind the header portion, has meta tags, or the kind of tags which contain meta information. Meta of course means the top layer of information. And that has certain components which are identified by the search engine first, because that's what it's supposed to be reading line wise. So the main part in the meta portion, or the meta tags, are three components. One is the title, the other one description, and the URL. But most important for the search is to look at something we'd like to call title. Should be somewhere here. But why make it different? Because it's so let's just show you over here. This is the extraction of a portion from the title code. Now here the title has something that is mentioned inside of the meta tag, which begins with the tag open, which is less than sign, and it is closed with the tag close with, greater than. So in between this text, which is internet research, all these different words that are used here are considered part of the title or something that describes the page. Title itself means that it is descriptive of, or it is a concise format or a caption that tells you what it is about. Not that it is detailed, but at least it's a heading, right?
Yeah.
So this is what the search engine reads. So when we are using the operator in title with the colon sign, we are specifically asking the search to search into pages, but specifically into the area or part of the content, more specifically into the title tag of that header or the top portion,
so
and
it's going
to
to be
read from this tag only.
So it's going to be searching this title part of the header, and the header never changes. So it's effectively just that.
It's just that, but there is another thing which is a little bit of something that you have to know as well, but it is not mentioned here. Sometimes, because the header remains the same, it doesn't mean the information behind the pages or the text wouldn't change when you go to other navigational pages. Reason being that because meta tag is something that in title investigates and relate to, there is another tag that is created specifically for SEO reasons or optimization, where if you go to different pages, a non-meta tag which is also named title is embedded in there, which is descriptive of what is mentioned in those navigational pages, or whichever page is changed, it has a different title, but the main title does not change, and then a non-meta tag is added to it so that it becomes like a subheading, or it is a subtitle to the main title. So that part is also read by in title. So in title is reading two parts. The other, see, this one is meta tag. This is read for sure. It's only because it needs to have this piece of information for indexing purposes, as a main pillar of information of what it is. Then there is another tag which is under this, that is a non-meta tag. It wouldn't say meta, it would just say title, and that is descriptive of whatever else is there in that page. So that is for SEO reasons, but the search engine now has picked it up and still investigates when you do in title with colon. So there would always be some variation. So it's not mathematics. So basically in the technology world, everything is set according to convenience, according to logic of what people can interpret best or understand best, and user experience and all that. So factors which are mathematically not constant sort of makes all those exceptions. And in the search engine, it is pretty much like, never a rule. It's always something that you experience, and from that you make your own notes. Normally I don't tell that to students to not to confuse them, but just so that you know, and since you asked the right question, where generally title part means anything within the meta title that is search with in title. But let's suppose you know a little bit extra piece out of how in title can use it. But in title is to be understood as something which is first of all going to query something, or the information set which is really concise. It has X number of words. It's not very lengthy. So how the titles are set generally, so they're not only concise, but they sort of describe in general everything about the page. So not a whole lot of wordings that you can put within title as a term, search term. Second thing is you have to look at title in the sense of how you are going to word your queries. Like certain wordings don't even fit into a title, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're missing pieces that needs to be added as a sentence or a phrase, but it's incomplete phrase, no, doesn't have to be part of the in title. So that way you may be making an incorrect use of in title. So supposing one of the ways in which I can be using in title, besides just, knowing part of the title, is certain words which are expressive of what exactly you need, and that generally is part of the title. Like suppose I need to find a form of some kind, I need help, I need FAQs,
Right.
frequently asked questions. So
Right.
I would use those, knowing and having an experience with those words as being part of the title generally, or should be part of the title, and will take me directly there.
Right. Right.
So you can understand that.
Yeah.
So for that reason, we have to be now why and in and how the search is looking at title. I don't know if I described what. Let's just remember this is 86. I don't want to be lost in this. So 86 is where we have to get to after this one. So I'm going to have to get to where. Let me stick to 86 here, and let me open the other one. This was one of the slides we used to show simulation of how search engine indexes the content pages and how it sort of hashes out or brings those important pieces and then starts to organize it. So one of the things that search engine does is that it's going to read the title tag. So you see title tag brings information about the page, and then the other thing that gets read is the meta description, and then meta keywords and so on. These are important pieces for the search to know from the header part to understand. So this is where it's going to crawl first. And so we know where the information of title is coming from, why it is okay. Coming back to slide 86, what is the importance of using in title? The title gives the first stop for search crawlers to learn what the page is about before it can be indexed in proper. So that's why I showed you that slide. Works well when you're looking for terms that are short names, brands, or online profiles. Like I said, something to do with titles, movie titles, famous people, things of that nature.
Right.
So when you're using in title, you don't want to, make a mistake of writing something that does not belong in the title, or it's not assumed to be part of the title. Drawback for querying the title in web is that there's short length of text.
Right.
Obviously, that is the drawback. Okay. Now let's see its application. Let's look at this example. You can see my screen. Is it showing on your side? So we've used in title with these wordings: internet search engine index. This is what we are looking for. These are the words in the title part. And this is how the title is shown in the snippets in this purple color. So when I'm using in title, what I'm saying is for the search to find any of these words. But there is one rule that applies to all of these advanced operator, and that is unless I put internet search engine index together within the quotation marks, the first word that is attached to or is right next to the colon sign is considered mandatory. Rest of the words, which is search engine and index, are not compulsory for the search to bring back. Generally, it attaches the combination of words which is falling or appearing right next to the word internet. Internet is constant. It is the anchor word or the primary word. Search may just get attached to it, But assuming that here we are trying to see or figure out the difference between using in title versus all in title. The in title here means that internet is definitely going to be there, and the search may just attach rest of the words or drop any of these, search engine or index. But search is what it attaches to generally, is the next word. And then it added the word engine also. So it brought 3 of these and not the last one.
Right.
But if we use all in title, it means that the title part has to have all of these words that are coming after the colon sign.
Oh, okay.
All 4 of these.
Okay.
So this is where all is used. Generally, I try not to use all anywhere. Instead, I use in title, and for few reasons. One of them is that if I'm not sure if all of these words are available, or I don't want to, restrain or restrict the query, I would use in title and not all in title, because all in title is something, unless it's absolute and I know for sure, I wouldn't use it, not in the same sequence.
It would depend upon what you're trying to accomplish. Yeah.
Exactly.
If you're looking for the more specific result, then you want a narrower set of results, but yeah. So,
yeah. But there is several reasons of using in title besides, its characteristics of containing all of these. The other reason is that if I'm using all in title, I'm not going to be able to use any other operator next to it.
Except or, right.
Unless I use or. But in title, I can use several instances, not bothering about or, basically. And one of the ways in which I use it, or I feel comfortable using in title, I'm going to show it with an example. Now, this is theoretical example. I'm not going to plug it into the browser, but just to show you why I would prefer in title instead of all in title. So let's suppose this is the query here, and we are going to take it as an example and use it further as well. So if there is a word that I am putting, which may not make sense linguistically, but maybe a word alone or a phrase that does not gel or does not appear in one sentence, linguistically speaking. If I say semantics, theory, right? The likelihood is that all of these may appear like in my search results, but this may not be attached to it because it may have something in between which I don't know of, or something that makes these two separate from everything else here.
Right.
So for that reason, I would use in title, or second instance of in title, and I'll go like this. So what it will be doing is, first is going to be separating these two terms for sure as something to be found as a single search term. And this will remain intact, so this does not get disturbed. But if these words are to be somewhere in the title part, but not necessarily in the same sequence of the sentence, then I would still be able to find something in the title portion that has a piece of this, and rest of it right here.
Got it.
So that's why I would use in title a few times. If it was all in title, see what this is doing in a way, it's saying, it's kind of contradicting its own command, in the sense that when you're saying all of these words to be included, and then you're saying in another instance, you're saying all of these words should be included, then you are telling the search that, this or this is good enough, or find both of these. Yet the word all is already indicating that anything that's after the colon sign has to be included, right? So this creates a problem unless we put something in between like an or, it otherwise will not function properly. One more thing that you are not able to do with or is that you can't use a minus sign to take anything out of it. Like you can't use all in title with a minus, but within title, I can use a minus sign. So that is a plus.
Right.
And if I'm using all in title, I won't be able to use in text, for instance. That's another operator that we'll get introduced to. Or, you know, put anything else that sort of is not, like I said, it's contradicting all the word all that you've added to in title by giving it another restraint, which
it's just a very
it's not
specific
friendly with. Yeah,
it's very specific query. Yeah. Couldn't you just replicate all in title by having in title and then putting the search term after the colon in quotes? Wouldn't it be basically the same thing or something?
You mean like this?
No, I mean, if in number one in end title, you put before internet and colon, you put quote, and then you put a closing quote after index. Wouldn't that be the same as all in title, internet search index below?
Yeah, you can do it like this. Like, first of all, internet search engine is one word, one term.
Yeah.
Search engine, internet, you know, it just sort of, you know, is a common terminology we use. So we don't have to use in title the second time here, but we can certainly put in title if we feel that it could be a word that may be part of it, but not necessarily in the same sequence. So we can put it or show it like this. So it will still look for these three and also look for index.
Sure.
So if we are not sure where its placement is, we can obviously put in second instance of it.
Sure.
And at the same time, we can use with in title something that we do not require specifically. Occasionally, if it is just a single word, index after in title means that it is mandatory. But supposing index is one word and then there is another word or more than one word, semantics, as we've used below, theory. Okay. So what the in title would be doing with this is that it may just entertain this one. And if the word theory is not found, it is just going to drop it. Second option is that the word theory may be replaced or synonyms may be, you know, something that would just be interjected. So unless we put these two within quotations, it won't appear as a single term. So the best way is to do it like this. Otherwise, if theory is not something that you're getting a better result for, you just open up the quotations, leave it outside. But because semantics is for sure something you need to appear in your index, then you are going to put it right next to the colon sign. So it helps to, you know, sort of segment it into portions apart, which otherwise you don't know if it is appearing in one single search phrase. You can break it into segments. And something that you're not sure of, you don't want to put within quotation marks. Right here, I think I've explained it with those examples. Like I can use the minus sign. We don't want the word policy in here. So I can use minus in title colon sign. Another way that I can use the minus sign, and it is, like I said, it's going to be the same thing that you will apply as a rule generally wherever you're going to use, especially under the snippets portion, any operators function behave same way. So I'm going to now show you how the minus sign you can use with in title. So if my in title minus, so what it's doing is just removing the word policy from the title portion
Right.
and nowhere else.
Mhm.
And we know that the content page is segmented. So title part is the meta tag, or the portion which we know of specifically. From that part, it's going to remove the word policy. But
Right.
if we were to remove the word policy altogether uh, from those pages, wherever it may be, on any part of the content page, on whichever tag it belongs to, doesn't matter. What will happen is that it's just going to remove the word policy totally from those pages and not find anything that contains the word policy in it.
Mhm, mhm.
So that's the difference between using minus with the operator versus just using it as a word to be eliminated. Next thing, Andrew, I want to look for some examples. There are so many of them that are shown in the in title um, that I have to pick and choose. So I'm going to look at some options that would tell you a behavior that would apply. Generally, as I said, just think of it in the perspective of whatever other operators that we use will have the same way of using something similar. In this, I want to show you the comparison. Like if I'm doing membership directory versus business directory, to find any of these two and include the word AOFIRS. So with reference to in relationship to AOFIRS, it should have other words or other terms like members directory or business directory.
Right.
So if we have to make a choice with these two words and using the or sign, it would work. But to make it even better, or not to confuse the search engine, I would rather see, remember the rule with or is that you want to compare apples with apples, or any relationship that exists between words should have some sort of a logic or something that substitutes, or you would be able to do with any of those.
Yes.
So comparing apple to apple is the principle, or the main concept. So I would rather, if I have to compare to see if members directory or business directory, any of these terms are available with the or, I would use in title again as a second instance, because I'm trying to find this word in the title portion and not to confuse the search, just so that it knows that it is comparing it within the title portion for these two words, or these two are the competing words in the title portion with the or sign. So I would rather put in title as a second instance to compare this with this, which is, putting the in title as a second, option. So I would, if I have to clean it or to make it a better search query, or the quality of my query should be improved, I
Right.
would just default to something like this rather. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, just this is a kind of back a few steps and maybe at a higher level here. Back a few steps in terms of what we were talking about before, in terms of the title, the relationship of the title and the header, and what's being searched. And I guess, so, I mean, a particular site is made up of any number of pages, right? And I guess presumably, so each page would have its own title in terms of what we're looking at now. Whereas I guess where I'm uncertain is if we're talking about a title that's a part of the header of the page, and we're saying the header of the page is kind of a constant as a property of the site across multiple pages, the header of the home page, I guess, then when we're doing it in title search, are we searching for that, or are we searching for potentially multiple page titles of pages that comprise the site. If that makes sense.
Sure. It makes sense. It's just that supposing we have a page here, and that title tag, assuming that it is a meta title.
Meta title, right? Yeah.
The meta title is the AOFIRS membership. Okay. Within membership, we may have another page as a navigation that sort of makes it kind of a subheading. Let's call it non-meta title. And says FAQ.
Yeah.
So now this is in the header portion, and the title will work on this. And this part is non-header, but in title is going to work on this.
On it also.
Well. Okay. So because see what will happen, and this is where the SEO guys work hard on, and that's what their job is. Like they're going to pick some of the title tags of individual pages, and then start to optimize it with the keywords that is descriptive of.
Okay, I see.
The sub navigations. Another way of learning about this is with the diagram that I've made right here, and I'm going to bring it up over here. Okay, the title tag is in the header portion. You could see that this is where the bracket is. So this is the header portion. So this title will first of all look at the meta part, and then it will come down to the non-header portion, which is this portion. And in this portion you have attributes. Attribute tag is what it is called, a non-meta tag. That says title. So this portion and the header portion that has title information is going to be queried by in title. So technically it is using the header part, title portion, this one, and then below this, which is non-meta tags,
which you mentioned before,
yeah, it's going to pick something which is attribute tag, non-meta, but it has been named title also. So when in title runs, it is going to query this one first, and then go and query the sub level or the the second layer of title. So technically it is querying, generally it is supposed to query any tag that has the word title in it. But the word title is only used twice on a single page from the programming perspective. So that's where you will assume that that's where it is going to look for those or match those words. That, I mean, we have a lot of examples, but there's so much that is in the book, but I'm just trying to, as I said, just figure out some. One of the things we are learning along with the examples is the more efficient way of writing queries, something that you can improve upon. So where I said, you compare apples with apples, the idea is again the same, is to just make it more effective. If you're using a minus sign, by the way, Andrew, you can use several instances of in title, but the only part where I'd be concerned is the length or the space that the query will occupy when you're putting it in the address bar.
Right.
And that's where you have to be mindful that, it's only so much that you can use the minus, because the minus sign is very useful in filtering out irrelevant, right?
Yeah, right.
So how many instances of minuses can you use? Because it's what we call a false positive effect, right? Specifically, or not directly related to in title, but assuming that you are trying to look for a name in HR, especially looking for name of a person. If you have used the word, let's say, John Smith. John Smith is how it is used in samples as a word similar to like John Doe.
Right.
But what if someone actually has a name John Smith? What's going to happen, right?
I actually know a couple. Yeah.
Yeah. How are you going to find the person with the same name?
Right.
If it's a famous person, how are you going to just keep that name from appearing over and over again? How many instances of minuses you can use? You can get rid of one context, that is the name, but or maybe a middle name, whatever, and then the other context might be appearing as in what was the example? We had a perfect example is in the book. It's about Professor Higgins. What was that? Rex Harrison.
Rex Harrison. It was Rex Harrison.
Rex Harrison. So trying to find Rex Harrison in Norfolk, Philadelphia, who was a footballer, not the same person, but unfortunately have the same name.
Yeah.
Even the city is the same. And then what would keep coming is while we are trying to get rid of certain words, including, the name of the movie or, the character name that so you keep putting minus this, just filtering it out. That's the dilemma.
Yes.
How long can you make that query to
right. Are there any character limits on the length of a query?
That's exactly where I'm getting to. So what I'm saying is that, there is a limit to how many instances of minus, because it's just going to add to the length of the query stamp.
Right.
So there is a limitation and it keeps changing. Google has nature of its own where, they don't inform anyone. It just so happens that we have reverse engineer everything. There is something here that we will find useful. It's a slide that has, like in the title part, for instance, if you're querying some, or if you are to assume that, in the in title, you're putting a very long statement or a long phrase, make sure it doesn't exceed 55 to 70 characters. That's generally the rule of thumb.
Yeah.
When you're writing,
that's okay.
Google search limits to 32 words to a search query. Each word is also limited to 128 characters.
Right.
And who knows today what the scenario is? It could be they have increased it or decreased it, but still, I generally don't use minus sign more than 4 or 5 times.
Okay. Okay.
Try to avoid making it like, it's like Howard Hughes plane, remember?
Right.
It never flew because it was too big.
Yeah. Right.
So the bigger you make it, more complex, and it becomes a problem.
Okay? Right.
All right. So far, so good, eh?
So far, so good. Yes.
So good. Now,
yeah, I'm eager to get into in text whenever you're ready.
yeah. That's what I'm getting you into, and trying to see which would be the easiest approach. Okay. First of all, in text is querying the middle portion,
right,
or where the information is. or the depth of information that you want to query, individual words, number of sentences, incomplete or not, anything else that is non-meta, you would certainly be querying using in-text. And in-text is going to query things like main headings, subheadings, paragraphs, every bit of text that is there on the content page. We call it body of text. Body of text, generally we use it in the sense of how it is applied in the middle portion or more dynamic portion of the content page.
Yes.
That, by the way, also includes the footer. Footer is something that sort of is part of the body of text, except that, it has more links, it has certain information which works really nicely with in URL versus in text. But for now, let's just assume body of text is what is queried by in text. In text is generally scanning through all the content in the textual format. Now, if you have on the content page things like images, for instance, and images are something that is not recognized by comparing it with, like I mentioned to you, it's a query that really defaults onto the description of what that image is about in the textual format. So if the image is named something, like if it's my picture, my photo, and it's on the internet somewhere, and somebody while uploading named it text in the text format, somebody else's name is put in there instead of my name, it's not going to get discovered, right? Unless you have my picture from before and you use another utility. So the idea here is that you understand that in text is purely going to read the text part.
Yes, right.
Similarly, if it is a PDF document and you're using in text, it is definitely going to find you PDF without even using file type. Why? Because the text or the title of that document is considered textual, or it has a text that is a sort of read, or it is interpreted by the indexing system as a matchable text. So definitely it is going to discover PDF also, except that it is just reading the and what gets read and is indexed by the search when you are dealing with PDFs, which is without using file types, for the index to know the title and all that, it's going to read the property of that document. Property is always there with the Microsoft Office suite, whichever one you're using. So that's what it's going to be reading and collecting and organizing. So there is this thing about text, which is what is peculiar about in text. It's only going to read that. Now, having said that, it has a preference of reading certain tags as a priority or something at the time when it's indexing it. It has a sense of knowing which part of that content or the textual content is more important than the other one. Tags is what we call a let's just talk about non-meta tags here. So anything that is being captured or is discovered by the search engine inside of the body of text is going to default to the labels that defines it. So if the label says, or the non-tag, when the non-meta tag says H1, it has a meaning for the search or for, so it's obviously going to organize all that information at the time it's being it's indexed before indexing. So when you actually put the query in the search box, the way it is going to read it is exactly how it has organized it in the first place, with the priority of certain non-meta tags to have a matching first before it goes to the next layer, until it defaults comes down to the paragraph, which has a non-meta tag or an attribute we call P. So wherever the P starts and the P ends, it means that anything in between that is textual is considered a paragraph. And what people used to do is they used to do something they call stuffing of words, meaning that what they used to do is put the captions with the kind of keywords that are more favored by the search engine. So that, yeah, it improves their ranking of the pages. And then search, while it is learning also, like how people are, using or deceiving the search, specifically the ranking algorithm, it starts to use AI and starts to make sense or create a relationship between the caption or the heading with the paragraph to read through and see if it has any relationship with the heading or the caption above it. All right. So if it didn't find that has any relevance or it has any correlation, it used to throw it out. So in fact, it used to rank it in a negative way. There is a minus ranking also in the algorithm.
Right.
So that's apart from what we're discussing, apart from the topic, but just to give you a sense of how the pages gets read. Now, in text has a way about it, and I'm not going to go into, these are just the extracted portion of the body of text, just to identify with all different pieces of information or tags that are shown. H3 tag is shown information. I don't have to, because I'm not teaching HTML, but it's just for you to discover and then, kind of make a relationship. But for me to give you a sense of where this information is showing on the description or in the snippet, you would find that this chart will give you an idea. So for example, we got a snippet right here. Okay. Wouldn't it be better if the picture was, I don't know why somebody with a very high level of graphic designing skills has worked on this, which is not something I prefer. So where was it? Let's see. Can this be like this? No, I'm not able to do it. Anyway, so whatever is queried with in-text, for instance, this could be a piece of information on a web page right here. So we'll begin with this. And what was to be queried is the wording web search certification, for instance. So I would have used in-text colon and all these words, web search certification next to it. So it is coming from, let's say, the H2 tag or a non-meta, which is describing it in its body, the wordings, web search certification. Now, this part is actually appearing in the description portion, which is the gray colored, more text with number of lines that is under the title part. See right here. So this is being pulled and shown for the user to know that this piece is matching. And if we click on this, it'll take me to this page which contains this information. So this part is actually going to appear in the description, which is gray colored portion right here.
Right.
Just so you know that where it's coming from. The significance of how we can use this for deeper textual search. It's got a good example. I think you will appreciate this example at least. It's makes more sense. Now, supposing I used in-text colon and I use the wording internet research specialist, then I did another instance of it, in-text online research and business intelligence, in-text CIRS. So this is a very long query and it has portions of the wording or the set of terms which are segmented literally in the sense of how these could be separated or could be different sets of search phrases, but they would exist on content page that, or you would want all of these phrases to somewhere to be found on any of those index pages, but not necessarily in the same sequence. So and then the other thing is that that these can't be part of the title. So if it is a portion like, let's say, CIRS certification is The CRS certification could be in title, fine, I agree with that. Online research and business intelligence may not be. Internet research specialist could be, so there's all sorts of mixes, but to ensure that it is being matched in the content pages anywhere, I'm just going to execute this query and then look at what the results brought me, just so to know where it queried the page itself. So supposing with this one, I got a result and this is what the result looks like. When I got this back, I saw that these were all, description part, which by using in text, I ensured that these wordings are not necessarily from the title, but more to do with the body. So it's going to appear in this portion down here, all right, and not on top. Now with the results, now this is one snapshot. I'll bring you back to this illustration again, but first I want you to know what the page or where the content appeared on the page itself. Right. So when I clicked on the page or clicked here, this is what the page looked like. And I saw on the page that there were, headings, there were subheadings here, there were paras here. Right. You see, all these are separately identified. Now, if the internet research specialist was to be found, it did see it, but it was in para 1, for example, at the top portion. And then in the para 5, I found the wording online research and business intelligence. Where is para 5? It'll be here somewhere. Online research and business intelligence. Where is it?
Yeah, it's right there in the middle of the paragraph. I can see it. Okay, I have it on my small screen. Yeah, it's right.
That's good.
Right,
so
middle right hand side. Yeah.
So you see, if I had done in title, it may not have brought me, first of all these lengthy words together or separate, whatever, or I would find it easier to find or match wordings that are more complex or unfinished words or phrases or pieces of it. I chose to use in text rather than using title, and it surely found a page which has all of these words segmented, separated with paras or under captions, and it really did bring me a depth of information. It did bring those pages. Now where these paras are separate and they're spread all over the content page, it's hard for the search to make it appear as piece of the paragraph, because in the description part, only because there is a limited space to display all this information, or there was relationship in the sequence in which they are set here. So what the search would make it appear or show, or how it's going to show you in the snippet, is by starting with, let's say, these 3 dots right here. So these 3 dots means that rest of it is para, and it chose to pick up an unfinished sentence or part of the sentence that describes or highlights the wordings to whichever word to be matched. It's going to be highlighted. Second para contains CIRS certification. So because it is not going to show the entire thing, it's going to bring those 3 dots back here again to separate the para before for these 3 words earlier, and then to continue with the next para is going to appear after these 3 dots, and so it shows CIRS certificate, and so it continues. Then the 4th para is going to show like this. So this is the best job that the search engine can do to bring those snippets. A lot of times when you're using in text, it may not show all of these, or it may not even show 3 dots. And obviously none of the words would be highlighted. That sort of makes you think, or it appears that those words are probably not there, or maybe search engine made a mistake, but reality is that that's not the case. It is another algorithm which is not able to, bring it in its entirety or display it here. But for sure, if you click on the link and go to that page, you will discover that those words are there, or the term, whichever way it is set, is going to be found there. Sometimes even if you click on the page, it is not discovered on the page itself, only because of the timing differences of when it was actually archived versus the time at which you looked at, or where the snippet is showing. But the page may have been changed a little. So to discover, to discover that piece of information, on that page, you have to open the source code and then look for it. It's going to be there because source code is what's being read. So if it doesn't show, even after not appearing in the snippet or even on the page itself, it surely is in the source code. So you can just open that and do Control F and look for it. It'll tell you and give you that for sure.
I was going to ask you, so I mean, this happens fairly frequently to me, and I do a search on something, and the search engine on the search engine results page, there are, the snippets of something, and it looks like I can see what I'm looking for in that snippet. And then when I actually go to the page, I can't find it. And so, maybe what you're telling me is if that happens, maybe I should go to the code itself and search for it there.
Right. Because you see, it does not get, your in-text is reading everything that is textual. So imagine what could be a textual part that is not appearing. In my opinion, it could be date and timestamp. It could be the name of the image, which it would have read, but all you're seeing is the image, not the description. It could be just be the keywords, like keywords itself. If you look at the header portion, it is got certain keywords that may be appearing in the body of text as keywords somewhere. So there could be now, for example, what type of query that you would imagine wouldn't find something, or you can think of something. Maybe it's on the part of the URL. That is because as a user, you don't see the URL. All you see is a clickable link. So anything that is behind that would be in the shape of URL, and it may have wordings in the URL path somewhere. So you can literally, so for you to not click on a link because it is appearing in your search results after you've done your in-text query, you should not ignore it. Like you shouldn't think that it is coming from, from nowhere. Obviously, it has run through a process which it's foolproof. It's not a faulty algorithm. It is for sure going to make those words appear somewhere on the content page. Unless those were there, it won't even show up in the snippet. So that guarantee is there always for sure. I see. It just depends, and the type of information you need. It's always embedded somewhere on this on the page. You can open it and just do the Control F and look into the source code.
I've one other question for you, kind of related to this. So I've been inside of WordPress, and I've used WordPress, for example, to set up pages, and maybe not directly with the HTML, but apparently for pages, you can create a snippet, what is called a snippet, that will be presented within the search result. In fact, that can be forced so that when a search occurs, the snippet will appear. And I guess, so my question is that the case? And if it's not prepared, what does get presented? And then, if there
Right.
isn't a snippet, and then
Right,
also,
I can answer
when we
that.
use the term snippet here, are we talking
Right.
about the same kind of snippet?
Right. A snippet is a short format, or is a form in which
Right.
you want to present your information
Okay.
more concisely and within the parameters set for that information to appear, with the preference of what is more important and what is less important. But in the case of Google snippets, that's separate from the snippets you create for your WordPress.
Okay.
However, it is the effort of CMSs like WordPress or Joomla
Right,
to
right.
ensure that it complies with, or at least it is,
Okay.
it is being set in a manner that makes it easier for the Google, according to its instructions, to make that decision whether or not to treat that in its entirety as a prepared meal for it to just grab and eat, or is it something that it's going to use
Right.
according to its own algorithms. Basically it is a helping hand. It is nudging or pushing the search, or telling them to be more friendly with us, so that it sort of brings that piece or makes it easy for the search engine to extract that. But at the same time, the search engine has got a mind of its own. It is not really dependent on those snippets. I won't guarantee those snippets to appear.
Right.
What it is doing all the time is ensuring that it is not rigged, it is not stuffed, it's not done for with the marketing purpose.
Right.
It is a genuine content. It sort of has a stuff like that. So though it is not something that you can say for sure that search engine is just going to pick and just display it.
Yes. Okay.
In fact, it is counterproductive in a lot of ways, because when search engine is already doing one sort of a round of they call it a Google dance, where it goes and looks up your sitemap and sort of starts to bring those pages in. At that point, it is doing its own indexing. So it sort of, if you're going to do something that is from the SEO point of view, it doesn't like it as much, but what it likes is it is a friendly, it's a handshake from between two parties, and the search engine may choose to shake hands with whoever it wants. It just depends. When you're going to do those, you're going to do it with your fingers crossed, assuming that the search engine would treat it in a friendlier way. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah.
You're welcome. Now let's look at how the certain type of so when you do index query, the return snippets has different ways of presenting that piece of information in the description portion, or in the gray text right here. And these are different formats Google is testing all the time. Sometimes it is creating things, or the kind of description is what is read generally by the users. They want to see the highlighted words. They have more reassurance because it sort of has a continuance to it, and those words highlight in between, so making more sense out of and making decision whether or not to click on it. So that description is more important generally. But the way it is displayed has different flavors. It has different formats, and that's what is displayed here. One of the formats, it's called featured rich snippets. So when you are creating, and this is perfect example, when you are doing, let's say in your WordPress, you're creating snippets, or you're actually creating suggestive snippets. It is considered a rich snippet. Okay. Rich snippet means that it is actually grabbing information which is readily available. Search engine doesn't have a problem if something is prepared, or it is pre-cooked, or somehow ready to cook. It's already. So when this happens, it sort of forms something called rich snippet, because it can readily get that information, like created by if it is something to do with Wikipedia, for instance, information. It's too tiny for me to read. Even for me to read, it's tiny. Let me see. There is a magnifier here.
There we go.
Slightly better. Yeah, but the resolution isn't that great. But anyway, see, it has more information. Like it is about a movie or Bart Simpson, for example, voiced by, created by, any piece of information which is an added feature, something that goes beyond just the typical snippet. It's calling it a rich snippet. Okay, it's richer in information. Something that appears in a box that says people also ask. Now this box is a feature that is not in your hands. It is something that the search may decide to bring or not to bring. It doesn't appear all the time, but supposing it had a relevance for the search to make it appear in this format, or the format that you're looking at is another type of description snippet. And so this one is called rich text. Again, it has a rating and all that. This one is called news text snippet. Okay, it's bringing information from news, because it is, see, indexing is very complex, yet it is very organized. And because it is automated, it gets it has a lot of room for improvement. And so they have different streams, like they segregate news sources with others and so on. So it sort of then connects it with the way it is to be described or presented to the user, making it user friendly, more informative. So the structure of how the description appears will also set how the description part is to appear. Like in this one, in the news text, they may have tested something which brings a partial video. A part of it is to do, and if it is news, the typical footprint is that you would find the dates along with, see, there's 13th May 2000. So this is more a news text snippet. This is a video snippet, and so it continues. So the snippet story is very complex. And good thing is that it is improving and it has more variety now. But to say that with the in-text, the results that you will get to see has more to do with the focus on how the description part is presented. So when we are using in-text, you can expect to find all different sets of or different formats of snippets as shown here: question snippets, product snippets, and so on. So this is the wonders of in-text. If you're doing it with in-title, probably not as much, but in-text for sure you'll find all sorts of a la carte
interesting
results. I like to use in-text quite often. In fact, if I have to do deeper search, something. Yeah. So
no, I can see where this would be really helpful for me. So, and I think one of the lessons here that you're teaching too is look at your, go and dig into the search results. Don't just look at, don't judge the results by the snippet. Go and actually see what's there.
Absolutely.
Trust the search engine. Yeah.
And people who are doing searches for literature of some sort, or scientific researchers looking into specific terms, deeper into research papers, not knowing what the title might be, they would certainly be using in-text rather, instead. So I think we'll do the examples when Marge is here.
Sounds good.
On Thursday and Friday, that would be a best thing. Better approach. And then the last part of snippet is in URL, or all in URL. That's the last one that belongs to the snippet area, which we'll be learning how to query and make it really useful. In fact, in URL is going to be something that would require a little bit of background in IT, or at least have some sense of knowing how the URLs are structured, or how the URLs are useful in finding your way,
Right.
or giving how it is useful in giving directions to where the landing page is.
Right.
If it is a blog, then the word blog ideally should be part of and even if it's a URL, there is always rules, or there is always practices, common practices, preferences of how it is structured. So URL is the address or the path of where one can find those documents.
Yes.
And general rule of thumb is to make it informative enough, or make it have the kind of words which typically are identifying the location of where the document is, or ideally identified with the folders that you would keep otherwise on your desktops. Like if I have to make a directory or something that is organized directory of information, I would segment it into research paper as one folder. I do blogs or articles or news, so all those folders would have a name. And for us to have an understanding of what typically is considered standard practice while writing the URL, it's like if it is news, you usually have the word news included in the URL. If it is a blog, you find the word blog. You would also find dates as part of the path. So to get a sense of where that information is coming from depends on how much you understand the conventions or the typical way of writing those URLs. So with this thought, I leave you with the best wishes for enjoying rest of the evening. And I'll see you day after.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.